He was never meant to be a blockbuster hero. Not the chosen one. Not the studio favorite. Not even the kind of actor Hollywood would trust with a billion-dollar franchise. Before The Mask, before the lasers, before the dance-off that saved the galaxy, Chris Pratt was the funny side character, the lovable goof, the guy directors hired to fill the silence, not to lead an empire. He joked his way through roles, carried extra weight, and fought an industry that didn't believe charisma could ever be a superpower. But in 2014, everything changed. Guardians of the Galaxy exploded to $773 million worldwide, transforming a B-tier comedian into Marvel's most unlikely leading man. The world didn't just laugh with him, they followed him. And 1 year later, he did it again. This time, roaring into history with Jurassic World and its $1.67 billion box office rampage. Behind the charm, though, was a man wrestling with identity, pressure, and a question that haunted every step forward. How do you stay yourself when Hollywood wants to turn you into someone else? Chris Pratt's story doesn't begin with red carpets, billion-dollar franchises, or a studio betting its future on him. It begins in the quiet outskirts of Virginia, Minnesota, where he was born in 1979, raised in a working-class family that struggled more than it succeeded. His father, Dan Pratt, worked in mining and remodeling homes. His mother, Kathy, worked at a supermarket. Chris didn't grow up around cameras, celebrity culture, or dreams shaped by fame. He grew up around hard work, humor, and the constant reminder that life rarely gives you anything for free. As a teenager, Pratt was athletic, energetic, and charismatic, but he had no roadmap. After high school, he drifted, attending community college briefly before dropping out, working odd jobs, living without direction. At one point, he was homeless on the beaches of Maui, sleeping in a van, doing part-time work for a Christian missionary organization, just to get by. The only thing he truly had was a natural ability to make people laugh. Even when life wasn't going well, he could lift a room. His big break came in the most unpredictable way. While working as a waiter at a Bubba Gump Shrimp Co. restaurant, he was discovered by actress and director Rae Dawn Chong. She cast him in her short horror film Cursed, Part 32000. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't a major film, but it was the start of chance. Pratt moved to Los Angeles with very little money, no connections, and no guarantee that anything would work. He auditioned relentlessly. He faced rejection relentlessly. But slowly, cracks began to form in the wall around him. From 2002 to 2006, he found recurring roles on Everwood, playing the earnest and sometimes messy Bright Abbott. The show didn't make him famous, but it proved he could act beyond comedy, tapping into emotional arcs that audiences didn't expect. When Everwood ended, he transitioned into The O, with another recurring role. Still, nothing screamed future movie star. He was working, but Hollywood saw him as interchangeable. A friendly face, a supporting character, a reliable comedic presence. The turning point came in 2009 when he was cast as Andy Dwyer in Parks and Recreation, a character originally meant to appear in just a few episodes, but Pratt made him unforgettable. His improvisation, timing, and joyful chaos turned Andy into one of the show's most iconic roles. The producers expanded his presence, realizing they couldn't replicate what Pratt naturally brought to the screen. But even with success on Parks and Recreation, Pratt hit a wall. He wasn't the leading man type. Agents said he wasn't physically built for action roles. Casting directors labeled him too soft, too goofy, too unstructured. Early in his career, he famously auditioned for Star Trek and Avatar, and was rejected both times. In interviews, he would later admit those rejections stung deeply, feeding a belief that maybe he wasn't meant for blockbuster cinema. Yet something else was happening beneath the surface. Pratt was maturing. His comedic instincts were sharpening, but so was his discipline. His presence on set became more focused. He began to study scripts more intensely, learning how to fuse humor with gravitas. He started training, reshaping his physical image, and quietly preparing for opportunities that didn't exist yet. By 2012, he earned supporting roles in Moneyball 2011 and Zero Dark 30 2012. These films mattered. They showed a new version of him. Subtle, grounded, emotionally honest. Audiences saw it. critics noticed it. But Hollywood still couldn't imagine him leading a franchise, especially not one as risky and unconventional as Guardians of the Galaxy. Marvel Studios was looking for something unusual. They needed a Star-Lord who could be funny without being childish, vulnerable without being weak, charming without being arrogant. Someone unpredictable. Someone who could stand toe-to-toe with Robert Downey Jr.'s charisma, but still feel like the misfit with a Walkman and a broken past. But Pratt wasn't on the list. He had already been rejected once for the role. Casting director Sarah Finn kept pushing. Director James Gunn hesitated. Not because Pratt lacked talent, but because he couldn't imagine the slightly overweight Andy Dwyer transforming into an intergalactic rogue with swagger and emotional depth. Against all odds, they agreed to let him audition again. When Pratt walked into the room, something shifted. He delivered the lines with comedic sharpness, then instantly switched to emotional sincerity. He didn't imitate a Marvel hero. He became someone entirely different, someone Marvel didn't even realize they were looking for. By the end of the audition, James Gunn turned to the team and famously said, "If Pratt doesn't play Star-Lord, the movie doesn't work." That moment changed everything. But the world outside Hollywood still saw a comedic TV actor. Some Marvel fans mocked the decision. Others doubted his physical ability. Even Pratt himself, at times, questioned whether he was ready to carry a franchise. Yet opportunity doesn't wait for certainty. So he trained hard. He lost over 60 pounds in 6 months, adopted intense martial arts routines, and rebuilt his body not to look like a superhero, but to earn it. Before becoming Star-Lord, Chris Pratt was a man standing on the edge of two futures. Stay where he was and remain a likable supporting actor forever, or leap into a new version of himself that the world had never seen. He chose the leap. When cameras finally rolled on Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014, Chris Pratt was stepping into the most uncertain Marvel experiment to date. Unlike Iron Man, Captain America, or Thor, the Guardians were virtually unknown to mainstream audiences. Hollywood analysts predicted the film might flop. Fans questioned the casting. Even Marvel Studios admitted behind closed doors that this was the studio's biggest creative gamble since 2008. But the moment Pratt appeared on screen as Peter Quill, playful, wounded, dancing through ruins with a Walkman, everything shifted. His performance fused comedy with vulnerability, shaping a hero who felt human even while flying through space. Critics praised the role as a breakthrough, calling Pratt an unexpectedly magnetic lead and Marvel's most natural comedic anchor. Audiences connected instantly. Not to a perfect superhero, but to a flawed one, using humor as armor. The numbers proved the world was watching. Guardians of the Galaxy earned $773 million worldwide box office, turning Marvel's gamble into a triumph. Overnight, Pratt transformed from sitcom supporting actor to global movie star. Studio executives began seeing him not just as a comedian, but as a bankable action lead, the kind who could open a film on name recognition alone. But fame brought pressure. For the first time, Pratt faced the psychological weight of leading a franchise. He struggled with identity, where Peter Quill ended, and where Chris Pratt began. Cast members recalled how he tried to maintain humor on set while quietly absorbing the demands of stardom. Press tours, fan expectations, and the pressure to deliver more than jokes. Star-Lord wasn't just a role. It became a mirror reflecting his own insecurities back at him. Yet, Marvel wasn't his only battlefield. 1 year later, Pratt headlined Jurassic World, 2015. Stepping into another iconic franchise, the stakes were massive. Universal Pictures invested heavily, betting that Pratt's rising charisma could revive a dormant blockbuster brand. It worked beyond imagination. Jurassic World roared to $1.67 billion worldwide, becoming one of the highest-grossing films of all time and the biggest opening weekend in Universal history. Box office analysts agreed on one thing. Chris Pratt wasn't a gamble anymore. He was a phenomenon. But success came with a price. Between Marvel, Jurassic World, and constant media scrutiny, Pratt struggled to maintain balance. Transforming physically for roles became a cycle. He began facing criticism online. Too muscular, too changed, too Hollywood. Every move, every quote, every moment of vulnerability became magnified by fame. Behind the scenes on Marvel sets, however, Pratt found grounding in teamwork, James Gunn shaped Star-Lord's emotional layers, a child abducted from Earth, a man hiding grief under bravado, and Pratt channeled his own experiences to bring authenticity to every scene. Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, and the rest of the cast often spoke of Pratt's generosity on set, how he encouraged improvisation, making the Guardians feel like a dysfunctional but loving family. The sequels pushed him further. In Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 22017, Pratt explored Peter Quill's loss, his complicated fatherhood storyline, and the emotional fracture beneath the jokes. Critics again highlighted his range, noting how he balanced comedy with pain. In Avengers: Infinity War 2018, Star-Lord made one of the saga's most controversial yet emotionally consistent choices, proving Pratt wasn't afraid to commit to flawed humanity on screen. Across each film, Pratt grew not just as an actor, but as a symbol of a new kind of hero, one driven by heart, humor, and hidden wounds. By the time Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 wrapped, Chris Pratt had cemented himself as a cornerstone of the Marvel Universe, a role he once never believed he could earn. Becoming Star-Lord didn't just reshape his career, it reshaped his destiny. When the dust of billion-dollar franchises finally settled, Chris Pratt found himself standing in a new reality, one where global fame was no longer a dream, but a daily pressure. Becoming Star-Lord and leading Jurassic World rewired not only his career, but the world's expectations of who he was supposed to be. Suddenly, he wasn't the comedic underdog Hollywood underestimated. He was the face of two of the biggest film franchises of the decade. But with that triumph came scrutiny. Pratt's life shifted under the weight of attention. Every interview, every quote, every personal moment became amplified by headlines. His physical transformation, once praised, began attracting criticism. A private divorce became public drama. Online debates framed him in ways no character blueprint could prepare him for, forcing him to confront the difference between the man he was and the celebrity he had become. Professionally, however, Pratt entered a new phase of power. Studios began offering him top-tier salaries and franchise-level opportunities. He voiced Emmett in the Lego Movie, delivered another box office success with Passengers 2016, and stepped into the iconic role of Mario for the Super Mario Bros. Movie 2023, which surpassed $1.3 billion worldwide. His name alone carried commercial weight. Brand partnerships followed naturally. Pratt collaborated with major global companies, becoming a familiar face in promotional campaigns tied to the Marvel and Jurassic universes. He also deepened his presence in philanthropic work, supporting children's hospitals and veteran-focused organizations, reflecting a desire to use fame for something more grounded than red carpet appearances. Still, the biggest shift after Star-Lord wasn't financial or professional. It was internal. The character who hid pain beneath humor forced Pratt to examine the parallels in his own life. He began speaking more openly about identity, faith, and the pressure of public opinion. He became more selective with roles, choosing projects that aligned with long-term stability rather than rapid visibility. Interviews revealed a quieter, more introspective version of the actor, one aware that blockbuster success can elevate you just as quickly as it can distort you. The Guardians trilogy's emotional finale marked an inflection point. Saying goodbye to Star-Lord was not simply closing a chapter, it was letting go of the role that transformed him. Cast and crew described Pratt as reflective and grateful during the final months of filming, a man conscious of the legacy he helped build. After The Mask, Chris Pratt emerged not as the joke-driven comedian Hollywood once boxed him into, but as an actor who earned both his stardom and his scars. The question now is simple. What happens when a man who remade himself must choose who he becomes next? Chris Pratt's journey from sitcom supporting actor to billion-dollar franchise leader left a legacy few could have predicted. But what stands out today isn't just the box office milestones or the global recognition, it's how he reshaped Hollywood's understanding of what a leading man can be. Before Star-Lord, action heroes were stoic, sculpted, and rarely comedic. Pratt helped redefine the template. Charisma mattered as much as muscle. Vulnerability could coexist with humor, and being imperfect didn't disqualify you from saving the universe. That legacy follows him into the future. Professionally, Pratt stands at a crossroads of opportunity. His work in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 closed a defining chapter, yet left the door open for potential Marvel returns. Kevin Feige has hinted more than once that Star-Lord's story isn't over, suggesting future crossovers or standalone appearances. If Pratt chooses to return, he won't just be revisiting a role, he'll be continuing one of Marvel's most human narratives. Meanwhile, the Jurassic World franchise remains an open frontier. Although Jurassic World Dominion, 2022, concluded the main storyline, Universal Pictures has expressed interest in expanding the universe. Pratt's involvement in future sequels or spin-offs is still unconfirmed, but his presence would provide continuity to one of the most profitable modern film series. Beyond blockbusters, Pratt is actively shaping his future as a producer and creative partner. He continues developing projects through his production ventures, focusing on action-driven storytelling with emotional stakes, films that blend entertainment with character depth. His Netflix series The Terminal List marked a shift toward grittier, more grounded material, and its strong reception signaled his ability to anchor darker, high-intensity roles without relying on comedic instincts. Voice acting remains another major pillar. After the Super Mario Bros. Movie crossed $1.3 billion worldwide, Universal and Nintendo opened the door to future animated collaborations. Pratt's voice has become recognizable to a new generation, an influence that will likely expand as animation studios explore long-term franchises. But legacy isn't only built through roles, it's built through impact. Pratt's public image today is a mix of strength, humility, and resilience, shaped by the highs of stardom and the challenges of scrutiny. He represents a generation of actors who weren't born movie stars but became them through reinvention. His success story inspires comedians, late bloomers, and anyone told they're not the type. And perhaps that is the real meaning behind his journey. Greatness doesn't always belong to the chosen ones. Sometimes it belongs to the ones who refuse to stop trying. Chris Pratt's legacy isn't finished. It's still evolving, one choice, one role, one reinvention at a time.